The Galactic Council meeting halls stretched for miles under the artificial sky of Harmony Station. Captain John Martinez walked through the massive corridors where beings from across the galaxy gathered to settle their endless disputes. His boots echoed against the polished floor as he made his way to the central chamber where today's crisis waited. For over 300 years, humans had served as the galaxy's peacekeepers. Every major war, every trade dispute, every territorial conflict came to human mediators for resolution. The alien species trusted humans because they had no ancient grudges, no territorial claims beyond their small corner of space, and most importantly, they had a gift for understanding different ways of thinking. Martinez commanded the diplomatic vessel Peacekeeper, but today he wished he was anywhere else. The Zephyrian Empire and the Vorthek Dominion were about to tear each other apart over a star system called Kepler 442. Both species claimed the mineral-rich worlds based on ancient maps and older hatred. Neither would back down, and their fleets were already moving into position. Dr. Lisa Shun met Martinez at the entrance to the main chamber. She had spent 15 years studying alien psychology, learning how different species thought and felt. Her research had prevented dozens of wars by helping humans understand what really motivated their galactic neighbors. The situation is getting worse, she told Martinez quietly. The Zephyrians brought their war fleet. The Vortheks are mobilizing their gas-mining platforms as weapons. If we cannot find a solution today, this turns into a shooting war by tomorrow. Lieutenant Danny Rodriguez joined them, carrying the latest intelligence reports. He managed communications between the hundreds of species that made up galactic civilization. Without his work, most aliens could not even talk to each other properly. The Tessari Collective just announced they support both sides, Rodriguez said with disgust. They are playing everyone against each other while pretending to want peace. Classic hive mind manipulation. Commander Patricia Hayes arrived last, her hand resting on her weapon as always. She protected human diplomats during dangerous negotiations, but her real job was reading the mood of alien delegates. After 20 years of this work, she could spot trouble before it started. The security situation is bad, Hayes reported. Half the delegations brought military escorts. The other half are carrying concealed weapons. Everyone expects this to go wrong. Martinez nodded and entered the main chamber. The sight always impressed him, even after all these years. Representatives from over 200 species filled the vast space, crystalline Zephyrians that sang in harmonic voices, gas-breathing Vortheks in their pressure suits, insect-like Tessari with their cold compound eyes, dozens of other forms of life, all gathered because humans had made it possible for them to coexist. The human delegation took their seats at the center table, as always. Not because they were the most important species, but because they were the only ones everyone trusted to be fair. Martinez had mediated over 300 disputes in his career. He had prevented wars that would have killed billions. He had saved entire civilizations from destroying themselves. Ambassador Kethver of the Zephyrian Empire rose first. His crystalline body caught the light. As he began to sing his people's claim to Kepler 442, the harmonic tones were beautiful. But Martinez heard the underlying anger. The Zephyrians had been preparing for war for months. The crystal worlds of Kepler 442 have belonged to our people since the ancient times, Kethver sang. Our ancestors carved the first cities from those worlds 10,000 years ago. We will not surrender our birthright to gas-breathing invaders. General Morthkas of the Vorthek Dominion responded immediately. His voice came through speakers because his methane-breathing biology required a full environmental suit. The Zephyrians lie as always. Our people were mining those gas giants before their species learned to leave their homeworld. The chemical signatures in our ancient texts prove our claim. The argument continued for hours. Both sides presented evidence, maps, historical records, and testimonies from allied species. Martinez listened carefully, making notes and asking clarifying questions. This was the hardest part of his job, finding truth among competing claims. And ancient hatreds. Dr. Shun worked quietly beside him, analyzing the psychological patterns of each speaker. She understood that the real dispute was not about mining rights or ancient history. The Zephyrians were afraid their crystal-based technology was becoming obsolete. The Vorthax were worried about their shrinking gas giant territories. Both species needed Kepler 442 to survive as major powers. Rodriguez managed the technical aspects of the discussion. His universal translation system allowed all the different species to communicate, but even that was not simple. Some concepts did not translate properly between species that thought in completely different ways. He spent most of his time preventing misunderstandings that could trigger incidents. Hayes watched the crowd for signs of trouble. She noticed the Tesseract delegates whispering among themselves in their hive mind network. Several smaller species were taking sides, forming alliance groups that could complicate any agreement. The tension in the room was growing stronger as the day went on. After 8 hours of arguments, Martinez finally called for a recess. He had heard enough to understand the real problem and was ready to propose a solution. His team gathered in a private conference room to discuss their options. "I think we can make this work," Martinez told them. "If we partition the system with joint mining operations and shared territorial control, both sides get what they need without losing face." Chun nodded agreement. The psychological profiles support this approach. Both species can claim victory if we frame the agreement properly. Rodriguez had already begun drafting the technical details. The communication protocols will be complex but manageable. We can establish neutral monitoring stations to prevent misunderstandings. Hayes remained skeptical. The Tessari are the wild card here. They want this conflict to happen. Watch for them to sabotage any agreement we reach. When the session resumed, Martinez presented his carefully crafted compromise. The Kepler 442 system would be divided into zones, with each species controlling specific worlds while sharing access to the most valuable mining sites. Joint patrols would prevent conflicts, and human observers would monitor compliance. For a moment, it seemed like the solution might work. Several smaller species voiced support for the compromise. Even some hardliners from both sides admitted the plan had merit. Then Ambassador Kethver stood up slowly, his crystalline features reflecting the chamber lights in sharp angles. When he spoke, his harmonic voice carried a tone Martinez had never heard before. "Humans," Kethver said, his words cutting through the chamber like ice, "you exist solely to serve our convenience. Your primitive species has no claim to authority. Beyond your usefulness as translators and messenger boys, you are tools, nothing more." The chamber fell completely silent. Martinez felt something cold settle in his chest as he realized what he was hearing. General Morthka's laughed, a sound like escaping pressure gas. "The crystal speaks truth for once. Humans are useful tools, but they are still just tools. Know your place, mammals." Around the chamber, delegates from dozens of species nodded in agreement. These beings that Martinez had spent his career helping, whose wars he had prevented, whose civilizations he had saved, were all looking at him with the same expression. Contempt. Martinez stood slowly, his voice perfectly calm when he finally spoke. "Conference adjourned," he announced. "The United Earth Systems is withdrawing from all mediation efforts, effective immediately." He walked toward the exit as protests erupted behind him. Chun, Rodriguez, and Hayes followed without question, but Martinez could hear Kethver shouting after them, "You cannot simply leave. We forbid it. You will return and continue your duties." But Martinez never looked back. After 3 centuries of service, humanity had finally learned what the galaxy really thought of them, and that changed everything. Within 3 days of the Sigma Station incident, every human diplomat in the galaxy received the same message from Earth Command. The recall order was simple and direct: return to human space immediately, abandon all current assignments, bring nothing but essential personal items. Commander Patricia Hayes supervised the evacuation of Harmony Station, the massive diplomatic outpost that had served as humanity's center of galactic operations for 2 centuries. The station housed 12,000 human staff members and their families, along with permanent offices for 47 different alien species. Now it was being abandoned completely, Hayes watched transport ships dock at the station's loading bays while alien ambassadors pleaded with departing humans to reconsider their decision. The same beings who had called humans tools just days ago were now desperate to keep their tools from leaving. "You must reconsider this action," insisted Ambassador Kethver, who had traveled from the failed conference. "The Kepler 442 situation requires immediate human intervention. Without mediation, our people will go to war." Dr. Lisa Chun supervised the loading of her research equipment while completely ignoring the Zephyrian ambassador. 20 years of studying alien psychology, thousands of hours learning how different species communicated and thought, all packed into shipping containers. Her work had prevented more wars than most people knew existed. "Dr. Chun, surely you understand the consequences of abandoning your responsibilities," Kethver continued, his crystalline voice taking on a pleading tone. "Billions of lives depend on human mediation services." Chun finally looked at the alien ambassador, her expression completely neutral. "Ambassador, our responsibilities were to beings who treated us as partners and equals. Since that relationship apparently never existed, neither do those responsibilities." Lieutenant Danny Rodriguez coordinated the shutdown of the Galactic communication network from his control center deep within Harmony Station. The network was humanity's greatest gift to galactic civilization, enabling instant communication across hundreds of light years. Every inhabited system in the galaxy depended on it for everything from trade, negotiations to emergency calls. Rodriguez had spent 15 years maintaining and upgrading the system. He understood every quantum relay, every transmission protocol, every backup system that kept the galaxy connected. Now he was systematically locking down every access point and removing all human oversight. The network requires constant human calibration to maintain stability, Rodriguez explained to increasingly panicked alien technicians. "Without our quantum resonance adjustments, the system will begin failing within 2 weeks and collapse completely within a month." A Vorthic engineer named Gashmak tried to access the main control systems but found every interface locked behind human biometric security. "You cannot simply shut down galactic communications. Too many lives depend on this network." Rodriguez continued his shutdown procedures without looking up from his work. "You should have thought about that before calling us primitive messenger boys." General Morthkes arrived at Harmony Station with a fleet of Vorthek warships, demanding that humans continue operating the communication network. The gas-breathing alien's pressure suit made his voice sound even more threatening than usual as he issued what amounted to ultimatums. "Humans will maintain their network duties regardless of political disputes," Morthkes declared during an emergency meeting with Hayes. "This system is too critical for galactic stability to be abandoned over hurt feelings." Hayes stood across from the Vorthak general in the station's main conference room, her hand resting casually on her sidearm. Behind her, human security forces had quietly surrounded the alien delegation. "General, you are welcome to try maintaining the network yourselves," Hayes replied calmly. "All the equipment will remain here when we leave. Of course, without the access codes and operational knowledge, it will be completely useless to you." The general's environmental suit hissed with escaping gas as his anger increased. "You will provide those access codes immediately. I am not making a request." Hayes smiled for the first time in days. "General, for 3 centuries you have relied on human cooperation because we chose to help. Now you are learning the difference between cooperation and coercion. You cannot force us to maintain systems we designed and built." While the confrontation continued on Harmony Station, similar scenes played out across the galaxy. Human mediators walked away from active peace negotiations, leaving hostile alien factions to face each other without neutral arbitrators. Human technicians shut down translation systems that had enabled interspecies communication for generations. The Galactic Council convened emergency sessions on dozens of worlds. But without human communication networks, the meetings were chaotic. Disasters? Species that had not spoken directly to each other in centuries found themselves unable to understand basic concepts without human translators. The immediate effects were catastrophic. The Kepler 442 crisis exploded into open warfare. Within hours of the human withdrawal, Zephyrian crystal ships clashed with Vorthak gas miners while Tassari infiltration vessels moved through both fleets like predators sensing weakness, but the Kepler 442 conflict was just the beginning. The Antaron Republic and the Helix Federation had been on the verge of war for months, held back only by ongoing human mediation. With the mediators gone, border skirmishes erupted into full-scale battles within a week. The Crystalline Syndicate's trade disputes with the Void merchants escalated into economic warfare that devastated shipping across 12 star systems. The Methane Collective's territorial claims against the Oxygen Alliance led to the first chemical attack seen in the galaxy for over a century. Most critically, the communication network began failing exactly as Rodriguez had predicted, without human technicians performing constant quantum calibrations. Transmission delays increased from seconds to minutes to hours. What had been instantaneous galaxy-wide communication became increasingly unreliable. Captain John Martinez commanded the last human evacuation fleet as it departed from the Outer Rim territories, where humans had maintained peace for generations. His ship, renamed the Exodus, carried thousands of human civilians who had been living and working among alien populations. Dr. Chun joined Martinez on the bridge as they watched the final transport ships dock with their fleet. Behind them, the lights of alien stations and colonies grew smaller in the distance, but ahead of them lay the safety of human space. "John, do you think we made the right choice?" Chun asked quietly as she watched the tactical displays showing the first battles of what would become known as the Spiral Wars. Martinez considered her question while reading reports from across the galaxy. Every human outpost was reporting the same thing: alien species demanding that humans return to their duties, threatening consequences, offering bribes, and finally begging for help. "Lisa, for 300 years we prevented wars, saved billions of lives, and held their civilization together," Martinez replied. "We asked for nothing except basic respect as equals. Instead, they called us tools and told us to know our place." He gestured toward the communications console where desperate messages from alien leaders continued to arrive despite the failing network. They had centuries to learn cooperation and mutual respect. They chose domination and contempt instead. The ship's sensors detected the energy signatures of major fleet battles beginning in 3 different star systems. The galaxy was tearing itself apart without human mediation, exactly as every human diplomat had warned would happen. "Now they will learn what our place really was," Martinez concluded. "And they will learn what the galaxy looks like without us holding it together." Behind them, the first flames of galactic war lit up the darkness between stars, while ahead lay human space and a future the galaxy had never imagined. The age of human servitude was over. The age of consequences had begun. 6 months after humanity's withdrawal from galactic affairs, the civilized galaxy was breaking apart faster than anyone had believed possible. What started as isolated conflicts had spread like a disease, infecting every corner of known space. With violence and chaos, President Karen Williams sat in her office on Earth, reading intelligence reports that painted an increasingly dark picture of galactic civilization. Her advisors gathered around the conference table, their faces showing the strain of watching an entire galaxy destroy itself. "The Kepler 442 system is now a 3-way battleground," reported Intelligence Director Steve Murphy. "Zephyrian crystal ships, Vorthak gas miners, and Tessari hive vessels are all fighting for control. None of them can establish dominance, so they just keep killing each other." Dr. Lisa Chun, now serving as Earth's chief advisor on alien affairs, displayed holographic images of the conflict zones. "This is what we predicted would happen. Without neutral mediation, every old grudge and territorial dispute is exploding simultaneously." The situation was even worse than the military reports suggested. The complete collapse of the galactic communication network had left alien civilizations isolated and paranoid. Species that had cooperated for centuries now viewed each other with suspicion and fear. The Antaron Republic launched what they called a preemptive strike against the Helix Federation yesterday. Murphy continued. They thought Helix ships massing near their border were preparing for invasion. Those ships were actually refugee vessels fleeing the Void Merchant blockade. The misunderstanding had led to the destruction of 3 Helix colony ships carrying over 2 million civilians. The Helix Federation responded by declaring total war against the Antaran Republic, abandoning all diplomatic protocols. Commander Patricia Hayes, now leading Earth's Strategic Defense Command, highlighted the military implications of the communication. Breakdown. Without real-time communication, alien species cannot coordinate military operations or even basic logistics. They are fighting blind. The translation crisis made everything worse. Humanity had developed and maintained the universal translation protocols that allowed thousands of different species to communicate with each other. Without human linguists constantly updating and calibrating these systems, even basic communication between alien species was becoming impossible. The Zephyrians just declared war on the Methane Collective, Hayes reported. Their automated translation systems interpreted a standard trade greeting as a death threat. The Methane Collective responded by releasing toxic gas clouds that killed 3 Zephyrian mining colonies. Captain John Martinez commanded a small observation fleet at the edge of human space, monitoring the chaos while maintaining strict neutrality. His ships helped human civilians evacuate from danger zones but refused all alien requests for assistance or mediation. Martinez watched the tactical displays showing 17 separate wars raging across the galaxy. Every conflict that humans had mediated or prevented over the past 3 centuries was now erupting simultaneously. The galaxy's great civilizations were destroying each other with an efficiency that impressed even experienced military officers. "Sir, we are receiving another priority message from Ambassador Kethver," reported Lieutenant Commander Jake Thompson, Martinez's new communications officer. This is his 47th transmission this week. The Zephyrian ambassador, who had called humans tools, was now sending increasingly desperate messages begging for human intervention. His latest communication had arrived via physical courier since the communication network could no longer reach human space reliably. "Honored Captain Martinez," the translated message read, "the Zephyrian Empire acknowledges that previous statements may have been poorly chosen. We formally request immediate human mediation in the Kepler 442 situation. Our forces are suffering catastrophic casualties and our colonies are under attack." Dr. Chun reviewed similar messages from dozens of species. They all follow the same pattern. First they demand we return to our duties. Then they threaten us. Then they try to bargain with us. Finally they beg us for help. But notice what none of them actually do, President Williams observed during their daily briefing. They never apologize for how they treated us, Chun agreed. They still see us as malfunctioning tools rather than people they insulted and dismissed. The situation reached a critical point when the Core Worlds Alliance assembled the largest military fleet in galactic history and sent it to the Sol system. Admiral Vexton commanded over 3,000 warships from 12 different species, all demanding that humanity resume diplomatic services immediately. Commander Hayes watched the alien armada deploy in threatening formations around Earth's outer planets. They are not here to negotiate. This is a show of force designed to intimidate us into compliance. President Williams activated Earth's planetary defense networks while opening a communication channel to Admiral Vexton, the alien commander. Appeared on the main screen, his scaled features showing barely controlled aggression. "Humans," Vexton began without any diplomatic niceties, "your childish tantrum ends now. You will immediately dispatch diplomatic teams to resolve the current conflicts, or the Alliance will take measures to ensure your compliance with galactic stability requirements." Williams studied the alien admiral for a moment before responding. Her voice was calm but carried an undertone that made her human advisors nervous. "Admiral Vexton, Earth appreciates your concern for galactic stability. However, we no longer provide mediation services to species that view us as tools rather than equals." "You misunderstand the nature of this communication," Vexton replied, his voice growing more threatening. "This is not a request or a negotiation. You will resume your duties immediately or face the consequences of your irresponsible actions. Behind President Williams, Hayes quietly activated Earth's defensive systems. Orbital weapons platforms powered up for the first time in centuries. Shield networks that had been hidden behind peaceful facades suddenly became visible. The Sol System's defensive fleets moved into intercept positions with a coordination that surprised the alien observers. Williams smiled, but there was no warmth in her expression. Admiral, you seem to have forgotten something important about human nature. For 3 centuries, you relied on our diplomacy because you feared what would happen if humanity ever stopped talking and started fighting. The alien admiral's confidence wavered as his sensors detected the true extent of Earth's military capabilities. Weapon systems that had been disguised as civilian installations revealed themselves. Ships that appeared to be cargo vessels deployed weapon arrays that outclassed anything in the alien fleet. Do you really want to find out what we have been building while we kept your wars from destroying the galaxy? Williams asked quietly. Admiral Vexton stared at the tactical readings showing Earth's defenses. The human homeworld was protected by technology that his species had never seen before. Military installations that dwarfed anything the core world's alliance could deploy. Weapons that made his mighty fleet look like children's toys. You cannot threaten the entire galaxy, Vexton said, but his voice lacked its earlier confidence. Admiral, we are not threatening anyone, Williams replied. We are simply no longer protecting you from yourselves. The galaxy is destroying itself. Because that is what you chose when you decided we were tools rather than partners. The transmission ended, leaving Admiral Vexton staring at static screens while his fleet found itself surrounded by human defensive positions. For the first time in galactic history, an alien military force was completely outmatched by human technology. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the wars continued to spread and intensify. Without human mediation, ancient alliances crumbled. Without human communication networks, coordination became impossible. Without human translation services, misunderstandings triggered new conflicts daily. The Tessari Collective emerged as the only winners in the chaos, using their hive mind coordination to exploit the confusion and expand their territory. While other species fought each other blindly, the Tessari systematically conquered weakened civilizations. President Williams watched the reports of galactic destruction while making the hardest decision in human history. The galaxy that had called them tools was burning itself to ashes. The question now was whether humanity would let it burn completely or intervene on their own terms. The age of human diplomacy was over. The age of human dominance was about to begin. 1 year after humanity's withdrawal from galactic affairs, the interstellar community had collapsed into complete chaos. What had begun as isolated conflicts between neighboring species had grown into a galaxy-wide war that involved every major power and most minor civilizations. Captain John Martinez stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching his patrol fleet monitor the borders of human space. The ship bore no resemblance to his old diplomatic vessel. Where the Peacekeeper had been designed for comfort and communication, the Defiance was built for war with angular armor plating and weapon systems that could destroy entire fleets. Sir, we are receiving another distress call from the Proxima Refuge, reported Lieutenant Commander Jake Thompson. 3 million Antaran civilians are trapped there. The Helix Federation is threatening orbital bombardment if the refugees do not surrender within 6 hours. Dr. Lisa Chun, now serving as Martinez's strategic advisor, displayed tactical information showing the deteriorating situation. The Antarans believe the refugees are Helix spies planning a biological weapon attack. The Helix Federation thinks they are terrorists preparing to poison their worlds. Neither species can communicate directly anymore, so they operate on pure fear and paranoia. Martinez studied the data while similar reports arrived from across the galaxy. The Crystalline Syndicate had weaponized their mining equipment, using massive laser drills to carve up inhabited worlds in their economic war with the Void Merchants. The Methane Collective was releasing toxic clouds that killed oxygen-breathing species, while the Zephyrians responded with sonic weapons that shattered gas giant colonies. What is our official position on intervention? Asked Commander Patricia Hayes, now serving as Martinez's tactical officer. Negative, Martinez replied without hesitation. We evacuate human civilians and nothing else. Let the galaxy burn since they lit the fire themselves. The scope of destruction was unprecedented in galactic history. Without the communication network, species could not coordinate ceasefires or negotiate prisoner exchanges. Ancient alliances dissolved as mistranslated messages triggered betrayals between former friends. Trade networks collapsed completely, leaving entire star systems without essential resources or medical supplies. The most disturbing development was the emergence of the Tessari, collective as the galaxy's dominant power. The hive-minded species had spent centuries secretly infiltrating other civilizations, while publicly supporting peace and cooperation. With diplomatic oversight removed, they launched coordinated strikes against every major power simultaneously. Intelligence. Reports from Commander Steve Murphy, now directing Earth's expanded spy networks, revealed the true extent of Tessari infiltration. They have hive nodes embedded in the core systems of 47 different species. Every major military base, every government center, every industrial facility has been compromised for generations. President Williams reviewed the strategic assessments in her secured command center beneath Geneva. Earth's defenses had been tested repeatedly as desperate alien fleets attempted to force human re-engagement in galactic affairs. Each attack had been repelled easily, but the political costs were mounting as human colonies demanded action. The outer colonies are requesting permission to assist with refugee evacuation efforts, reported Defense Secretary Mike Johnson. They are witnessing massive civilian casualties in nearby systems and want to help. Williams considered the request while watching news feeds from across human space. Every major news network showed the same horrific images of burning worlds, refugee ships under attack, and entire species facing extinction. The human population was deeply divided between those who wanted to help and those who remembered 3 centuries of alien contempt. Dr. Chun provided the psychological analysis that Williams needed to make her decision. Our intelligence indicates that the alien species still do not understand why we withdrew from galactic affairs. They view our actions as irrational behavior rather than justified responses to their treatment of us. The breaking point came when the Tessari launched their final offensive against the remaining free civilizations. Using their infiltration networks, they triggered simultaneous civil wars within dozens of species, while positioning their main fleets to capture the chaos weakened governments. Within 3 weeks, the Tessari Collective controlled nearly a third of the galaxy. Admiral Vexton, whose Core Worlds alliance had been shattered by Tessari infiltrators, sent a final desperate message to Earth. The proud military commander who had once threatened humanity now appeared broken and defeated, his scaled features showing exhaustion and despair. President Williams, he began, his voice lacking any trace of its former arrogance. I come before you not as a conqueror or negotiator, but as a being whose entire civilization faces extinction. The Tessari have destroyed everything we built over thousands of years. Our children are dying in refugee camps. Our worlds burn while we watch helplessly. The transmission continued with Vexton's voice growing more desperate. We were wrong about humanity. We see that clearly now. We treated you as servants when you were our protectors. We called you tools when you were our guardians. We dismissed your value when you were the foundation of our civilization. Williams watched the transmission in her command center, surrounded by her military and civilian advisors. Around the room, holographic displays showed the galaxy's collapse in real time, as Tessari forces systematically conquered one civilization after another. Please, Vexton concluded, his voice breaking with emotion, I beg you to help us. Not because we deserve it, but because billions of innocent beings will die if you do not act. We offer ourselves as subjects rather than allies if that is what it takes to save our people. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in complete silence. Williams studied the strategic displays showing Tessari expansion while her advisors waited for her decision. Hundreds of billions of lives hung in the balance. Madam President, Dr. Chun said quietly, if we do not act within the next few weeks, there will not be a galaxy left to save. The Tessari will control everything, and genocide will become their standard policy for dealing with other species. Commander Hayes provided the military assessment. Our fleets are ready for immediate deployment. We have been preparing for this possibility since the withdrawal began. We can stop the Tessari expansion, but only if we act decisively. William stood slowly, feeling the weight of human history pressing down on her shoulders. For 3 centuries, humanity had served as the galaxy's peacekeepers and diplomats. They had prevented wars, saved civilizations, and maintained the delicate balance that allowed thousands of species to coexist. In return, they had been called tools and told to know their place. Now the galaxy was burning, and only humanity had the power to stop the flames. But this time they would not be coming as servants or mediators or humble peacekeepers begging for respect. Prepare the fleets, Williams ordered, her voice carrying the authority of an entire species. Signal all commands to begin immediate deployment. It is time to remind the galaxy why they needed our diplomacy in the first place. She paused, looking at the displays showing the Tessari advance and the desperate resistance of the surviving free civilizations. But this time, we are not coming as their servants, we are coming as their masters. The age of human diplomacy was over forever. The age of human conquest was about to begin. The return of humanity to galactic affairs came not with diplomatic messages or peace conferences, but with the largest military fleet in recorded history. President Williams had authorized the deployment of Earth's entire strategic reserve, revealing 5,000 warships that had been constructed in secret during the centuries of human diplomatic service. Admiral Martinez commanded the Liberation Fleet from the flagship UES Sovereignty, a massive dreadnought equipped with weapons, technology that left alien observers speechless. The human fleet moved through space like a force of nature, their coordinated formations and advanced tactics overwhelming every enemy they encountered. The first target was the Tessari stronghold in the former Zephyrian core worlds. The hive-minded species had transformed the beautiful crystal cities into massive biological processing centers, converting captured alien populations into new drone soldiers for their expanding empire. As Martinez's fleet approached the occupied system, Dr. Lisa Chung coordinated with human intelligence networks that had been quietly monitoring galactic events throughout the withdrawal period. The Tessari have approximately 2 million ships in this system, but they are primarily conversion vessels and light scout craft. Their infiltration strategy never prepared them for direct military confrontation with a peer-level force. Fleet. Admiral Patricia Hayes managed the tactical deployment of human forces with precision that alien military observers had never witnessed. All ships execute Operation Cleansing Fire. Primary targets are the biological processing stations. Secondary targets are hive node command vessels. Tertiary targets are any ship that does not immediately surrender. The battle lasted exactly 6 hours and 12 minutes. Human ships moved with coordination that alien forces had never seen before. Their communications perfect and their strategies flawlessly executed. Where other species fought as individual ships or loose formations, humanity functioned as a single, coordinated organism. The Tessari, accustomed to overwhelming enemies through sheer numbers and infiltration tactics, found their methods completely useless against opponents who could not be infiltrated and refused to be intimidated. Human ships systematically destroyed the processing stations while specialized rescue vessels evacuated millions of prisoners from the biological conversion facilities. Among the rescued aliens were Ambassador Kethver and General Morthkus, the Zephyrian and Vorthak leaders who had dismissed humanity as tools 2 years earlier. Both had been scheduled for biological conversion into Tessari drone soldiers within days of the human arrival. As medical teams treated the rescued aliens aboard human hospital ships, Kethver approached Captain Martinez with obvious difficulty. The crystalline being's body showed signs of partial conversion, with organic growths that would have slowly replaced his natural crystal structure. Captain Martinez, Kethver began, his harmonic voice subdued and lacking its former arrogance. "I must speak words that my species has never spoken to any other race in our 10,000-year history." Martinez waited silently, his expression neutral as he studied the alien who had once called humans primitive messenger boys. "We were wrong," Kethver continued, his crystalline features flickering with what might have been tears. "We were fools and blind to our own arrogance. We treated you as servants when you were our guardians. We dismissed you as primitive when you were our protectors. We called you tools when you were the foundation of our civilization." The Zephyrian ambassador paused, struggling with concepts his species had never needed to express before. "Can you forgive us for our blindness? Can humanity find mercy for those who were too proud to see the truth until it was almost too late?" Similar scenes played out across the Liberation Fleet as rescued aliens confronted the reality of what humanity had been protecting them from for centuries. The galaxy's great civilizations, reduced to scattered refugees and desperate resistance cells, finally understood the true cost of their arrogance and contempt. Within 6 months, human fleets had shattered Tessari power across the galaxy. But unlike previous galactic conflicts, this war did not end with negotiated settlements or territorial exchanges. It ended with the complete restructuring of interstellar civilization under human authority. President Williams addressed the galaxy from the rebuilt Galactic Council chambers, speaking to representatives of every surviving species. The chamber had been reconstructed according to human specifications, with every seat positioned equally and every voice given identical weight regardless of species size or historical power. "For 3 centuries," Williams began, her voice carrying to every corner of human-controlled space through the rebuilt communication network, humanity served as your mediators, your peacekeepers, and your faithful servants. We prevented wars that would have killed billions. We saved civilizations from destroying themselves. We maintained the systems that held your society together." The alien representatives sat in uncomfortable silence, many showing visible signs of malnutrition and exhaustion from the war years. The mighty civilizations that had once dominated the galaxy were now dependent on human charity for basic survival. "In return for our service, you called us tools and told us to know our place," Williams continued. "You treated us as servants rather than equals, as conveniences rather than partners. You made it clear that you viewed humanity as useful but ultimately disposable." Admiral Vexton, his military alliance dissolved and his people scattered across refugee camps, raised a scaled hand with obvious hesitation. "President Williams, what you describe sounds very much like permanent occupation of our territories and governments." Williams smiled, but the expression held no warmth or comfort. "Admiral, you had 3 centuries to learn cooperation, mutual respect, and peaceful coexistence. Instead, you chose domination, contempt, and the assumption that might makes right. Now you will learn what actual domination looks like when practiced by a species that understands both diplomacy and warfare." Dr. Chun stepped forward with the new Galactic Charter, a comprehensive document that established humanity's absolute authority over all interspecies affairs. "Every surviving government will sign this charter and abide by its terms without exception. Any species that refuses will be quarantined to their home systems until they reconsider their decision." The terms were completely non-negotiable. Human fleets would patrol all space lanes and trade routes. Human administrators would oversee all interspecies commerce and communication. Human courts would resolve all conflicts between different civilizations. Human governors would manage all colonial territories and disputed systems. The galaxy's children had proven they could not play nicely together, so the adults were permanently taking charge of their behavior. One by one, alien representatives signed the charter with whatever appendages their species used for writing. Some, like Kethver, signed with genuine gratitude for their rescue from Tessari conversion. Others, like the surviving Void merchants, signed with barely concealed resentment and anger. All signed because the alternative was complete isolation. In a galaxy now dominated by overwhelming human military superiority. As the ceremony concluded, Martinez stood beside Williams, watching the alien delegates file out to return to their devastated homeworlds under human supervision. Do you believe they will honor the terms of this charter? He asked quietly. Williams considered the question while reviewing reports from across human space. Human colonies were expanding rapidly into former alien territories. Human technology was revolutionizing galactic infrastructure. Human culture was spreading to species that had never respected it before. They will honor it, she replied with complete confidence, because they finally understand the choice we are offering them. They can live in a galaxy governed by human wisdom and protected by human strength, or they can die in a galaxy destroyed by their own stupidity and hatred. Outside the council chambers, Earth's flag flew alongside the banners of every species in the galaxy. But there was no question which flag flew highest, or which species would determine the galaxy's future for generations to come. Humanity had been pushed too far, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The age of alien arrogance was over forever. The age of human dominance had begun.